All right, back for a Monday in the state capitol to do the work of the people. This morning we didn't have a 7 a.m. breakfast, and Business and Labor didn't start until 9, so it was so nice to be able to drive from Butte over to Helena in the light. We heard 2 bills in Business and Labor, and they were great ones. One was from Representative Noonan to increase the pull tab limit from $5 to $25. I know there are a lot of folks who would like to see that happen. And the other bill was from Representative Edmonds to allow employers to drug test anyone. Right now, we've said that you can only infringe on someone's privacy in order to drug test them if their job basically involves public safety, or like driving a vehicle. And so there were some great folks that showed up to say this is unconstitutional and you should not infringe on people's right to privacy. It's based on their own personal rights on the Montana Constitution. It was such a fun bill to hear. It was probably one of the highlights that I've had so far, just seeing all the great people stand up and say, no. We took executive action on House Bill 22, and in the middle of all that, I was able to not really sneak, but excuse myself to run upstairs to testify for a hearing that decides which grants get money for which communities. And I was thankful because Senator Sesso sent us a text saying, hey, Butte's got 2 grants up that will really improve our community. So if you can get out of your community for 5 minutes, then run upstairs and just pop in and say, I'm Representative Curtis from Butte Silver Bow, and I support these projects. And I was able to do that, and the timing was perfect. Business and Labor was out by 10 a.m., and we had a ton of people in the Capitol today doing a day of action for Martin Luther King Day. So the firefighters were out in force, and I was able to meet with the Butte firefighters that I just love so much, and they gave me an honor coin. Excuse me, it's a challenge coin. It's an honor to get it from them. And I also was able to meet with all kinds of public employees that were there for the state pay plan day of action. They were handing out these stickers that's saying support a 5% pay raise this year and a 5% pay raise next year for our state employees because they haven't gotten a pay raise and they deserve one. And there were a lot of Butte people there, and it was just so great to have regular non-politicians there getting their voices heard. I was able to show a couple people how to use the legislative website to find where their legislative contact might be. I also, in that same time period, met with a constituent to get my testimony ready for a bill that I presented today at 3. We had some amendments that needed to address some people's concerns on it, and I'll talk about that in a second. We had lunch today with almost the entire Butte delegation, and some folks from Butte, the Bergs, and Mike Chiava came over and took us to lunch, and it was just a good time of fellowship to meet with some familiar faces and all talk about home. So the floor session was really interesting today. We made it back just in time, 1 p.m., to go to the House floor, and everything was non-controversial except for House Bill 50. House Bill 50 had a big red flag on it because it was the only bill that came out of committees with a vote straight along party lines. And so if you didn't get to see any of the video from today, I would definitely recommend going to the video from the House floor session today and watching the testimony that happened around House Bill 50. It was a bill that would prevent Montana cities from creating sanctuaries for illegal immigrants. And Jen Gursky, I think, pretty much summed it up using biblical references to say you can't discriminate and you should take care of everyone regardless of where they're from. And I think it's interesting that on one hand we'll have people say, we can't put any federal law in the Montana code, this is terrible, we should all vote against it. And then 2 days later say, we have to put this federal code in the Montana law. I don't need to say anything else about that, I think. On third reading today, you saw me flip a vote if you've been paying attention. I said on my last video that I voted for lighted knocks because I had one constituent email me and tell me that he supported it. Well, since then, since I voted yes on second reading, I've had way more constituents say, no, that's the wrong vote. We really think that you should keep archery pure. So even though I personally think that lighted knocks should be allowed because it doesn't restrict anyone, it just gives more rights, I flipped my vote today, and on third reading I went ahead and voted no against the lighted knocks. So I don't, that's just the first time I flipped a vote, and I thought people might be interested, and I kind of struggled with it. I didn't really know what to do, and now you know the reason behind it. On the House Bill 50, I wanted to say again that that was almost straight along party lines. 59 people voted for the bill, which would restrict the rights of cities, and 41 people, so 39 Democrats plus 2 Republicans, voted against the bill to not restrict the powers of cities. The floor session lasted way longer than it has so far. We adjourned at 2:50, and we're supposed to meet in our afternoon meetings at 3. I presented a bill, House Bill 227, at 3 o'clock to what's called the FRET Committee. That's an acronym. I hadn't had as much time as I had planned for to get really everything together, and I was a little bit flustered. I still feel like I did an okay job, but I was disappointed. I felt like I could have done a better job in presenting that bill. It requires the Department of Environmental Quality to create and maintain a website that posts the energy efficiency findings for all government-owned buildings. There was kind of some pushback on the university system about how much it was going to cost them to gather that data, and so we brought forward some amendments, and I'm not really sure where it's going to go. I was missing Human Services to present that bill. By the time I got to Human Services, I had missed almost both of the bills that were presented. We heard House Bills 28 and 123, and it looks like we're going to be able to vote yes on both of those, so everyone's in agreement. Those are 2 good bills from what I can tell. The Democrats on the Human Services Committee caucused after that to discuss the 4 bills that we're going to hear on executive action on Wednesday, just to make sure that no one had any questions and we knew where we were going with it. I left the Capitol building right around 4:30, 4:45, and tonight was one of the nights where there were so many events in Helena it was hard to choose what to go to. Monica Lundin hosted a reception at the Holter Museum for all of the legislators. The Montana Human Rights Network had a Martin Luther King film showing and a reception for us at the Myrna Loy. The Lewis and Clark Democrats had a community day. They replayed the inauguration speech and had a little fundraiser at the brewery. And then the firefighters who were in town hosted a reception for us. And so I went to the Human Rights Network, the Lewis and Clark Democrats at the brewery, and then I went to the firefighters dinner. I have a bill up for the volunteer firefighters that kind of may or may not affect the career firefighters, and I needed to go especially to that and give my support to our hardworking firefighters, and also get some information and meet some people to talk about how this bill may or may not affect the 2 kind of different factions of firefighters. I'm still learning all about that. I don't have to be, but I'm going to go to a 4-H breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. 4-Hers from all across the state host us for breakfast, and they pair up, like I'll be at a table eating breakfast with some 4-H students from Butte Silver Bow, and I'm really looking forward to that, but it's going to be an early morning, so good night.